Beggar woman returns Millionaire's wallet, then discovers he's her lost husband. The bustling city was alive with the sounds of honking cars, hurried footsteps, and distant conversations. Among the chaos, Maria sat on the cold, hard pavement near a busy intersection, her shawl pulled tightly around her shoulders to shield herself from the biting wind. Her hands, rough and calloused from years of hardship, held a small, empty tin cup that she used to collect whatever change passers-by were willing to spare. Once, Maria's life had been filled with hope and promise. She had been young and vibrant, with dreams of a family and a home. But life, as it often does, had taken a cruel turn. A devastating accident had torn her husband, Andres, away from her many years ago. They had been newlyweds, inseparable and deeply in love, but after that tragic day, Andres had vanished. With no family or safety net to rely on, Maria had been left to fend for herself, eventually finding solace in the streets. Now, she existed in the shadows of a city that rarely stopped to notice her. But Maria's spirit, though battered, remained unbroken. On this particular morning, the sun struggled to break through the gray clouds as Maria adjusted her position on the pavement. She watched the world rush by, her sharp eyes catching fleeting details. A child holding her mother's hand, a man arguing on his phone, a well-dressed businessman stepping out of a sleek black car. The man's presence caught her attention. He exuded power and wealth, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the shabby clothing Maria wore. He carried a leather wallet, which he hastily shoved into his coat pocket before stepping into the coffee shop on the corner. As he disappeared through the door, Maria noticed something. The wallet had slipped out of his pocket and landed on the ground. Her heart skipped a beat. She looked around, wondering if anyone else had seen it, but the crowd was too preoccupied to notice. For a moment, Maria hesitated. Her empty cup reminded her of how desperately she needed money, and the temptation was undeniable. But then she thought of Andres, his kind smile, his gentle words urging her always to do what was right. With trembling hands, Maria picked up the wallet. It was heavy and filled with cash, far more money than she had seen in years. Her stomach growled and her thoughts raced. She could buy food, find shelter for a few nights, maybe even save enough to start fresh. But deep down, she knew what she had to do. When the man exited the coffee shop, sipping from a steaming cup, Maria mustered her courage and approached him. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice soft but steady. "You dropped this?" The man turned to her, his expression one of surprise. He looked down at the wallet in her outstretched hand, then back at her face. For a moment, he seemed taken aback, as if something about her struck a chord deep within him. "Thank you," he said, his voice warm and sincere. He took the wallet and opened it, quickly verifying its contents. "You could have kept this, you know. Why didn't you?" Maria shrugged, a faint smile crossing her lips. "Because it wasn't mine." The man's gaze lingered on her for a moment longer. "What's your name?" "Maria," she replied simply. "Well, Maria," he said, reaching into his wallet, "you've done something remarkable. Let me repay your kindness." He handed her a crisp bill, far more than she had expected, and for a moment, Maria was too stunned to respond. "Thank you," she managed to whisper. As the man climbed back into his car, Maria's eyes followed him. There was something familiar about him, something she couldn't quite place. Shaking her head, she dismissed the thought. It wasn't possible. That night, Maria couldn't shake the feeling that the man she had met was more than a passing stranger. Something about his voice, his eyes, had stirred memories she had long buried. Could it be? No, she thought to herself. It was too improbable. Andres was gone. He had been gone for years. But what if? The thought haunted her as she lay on her makeshift bed in the alleyway, staring up at the stars. She resolved to find out more, to follow the faint thread of hope that had unexpectedly been woven into her life. The next morning, Maria woke with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. Though her circumstances hadn't changed, the man's face lingered in her mind like a faint melody she couldn't ignore. She decided to return to the intersection where she had first seen him, hoping for another chance encounter. Maria spent the day watching and waiting, her sharp eyes scanning the crowd for a glimpse of the man. Hours passed, and she began to wonder if she had imagined the familiarity she thought she saw in him. Just as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, the sleek black car pulled up to the same corner. Her heart raced as she saw him step out, this time without the rushed urgency of the day before. He seemed more relaxed, adjusting the cuffs of his tailored jacket as he walked toward the same coffee shop. Summoning her courage, Maria stood and approached him once again. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice wavering slightly. The man turned, his eyes meeting hers. This time, recognition flashed across his face. "Maria?" he asked, his tone curious and surprised. "We met yesterday, didn't we?" "Yes," she replied, feeling a strange mixture of hope and fear. "But I need to ask you something." He frowned slightly but nodded. "Of course. What is it?" Maria hesitated, unsure of how to phrase her question. Finally, she blurted out, Do you remember me?" The man blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Remember you?" he repeated, studying her face more closely now. For a moment, the noise of the bustling street seemed to fade as he looked at her, his brow furrowing in concentration. "I don't know why," he admitted slowly, "but you do seem familiar." Maria's breath caught. Could it really be him? She reached into the pocket of her shawl and pulled out a small, weathered photograph. It was the only possession she had kept through all the years of hardship. A picture of her and Andres on their wedding day, smiling brightly, full of love and hope. She held the photo out to him, her hands trembling. "Is this you?" The man took the photo, his expression shifting from confusion to shock. He stared at it for what felt like an eternity, his face pale. Finally, he looked up at her, his voice barely a whisper. "Maria, it's me. Andres." Tears streamed down Maria's face as the truth settled over her like a warm embrace. "Andres, you're alive?" she choked out, hardly daring to believe it. "I am," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "But how? How are you here? I thought I lost you forever." Maria shook her head, her tears falling freely now. "I thought the same about you. After the accident, you disappeared. I didn't know what happened to you." Andres looked at her, his eyes filled with sorrow and regret. "I was in a coma for months after the accident. When I woke up, I didn't remember anything, not my name, not my life, not the us. They told me I had no identification, no family to contact. I started over, not knowing who I was." Maria listened, her heart breaking and mending all at once. "And now?" she asked softly. "Do you remember now?" Andres nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. "It started coming back a few years ago, in pieces. I remembered a name, Maria, but I didn't know where to look. I didn't even know if you were still alive. And then yesterday, when I saw you, something stirred in me." Maria reached for his hand, holding it tightly. "I never stopped looking for you, Andres. Not for a single day." He looked down at their joined hands, his voice filled with wonder. "And I found you. After all this time, I found you." Andres insisted on taking Maria home with him that evening. For the first time in years, Maria sat in a warm, comfortable car, the city lights blurring past her as Andres told her about the life he had built. Despite starting with nothing, he had worked tirelessly, climbing the ranks of the business world and eventually becoming one of the city's most successful entrepreneurs. Yet, even with all his wealth and achievements, something had always felt missing. "I never understood why," Andres admitted as they arrived at his sprawling estate. "But now I do. It was you, Maria. It was always you." Maria marveled at the grand house, its towering windows glowing warmly in the night. As she stepped inside, she felt out of place but deeply grateful. Andres led her to a cozy sitting room, where a fire crackled in the hearth. He poured them both a cup of tea and sat across from her, his gaze never leaving her face. "You've been through so much," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I wasn't there for you." Maria shook her head, placing her hand over his. "It wasn't your fault, Andres. Life tore us apart, but it couldn't keep us that way." In the weeks that followed, Andres and Maria began to rebuild their lives together. He helped her transition out of life on the streets, ensuring she had everything she needed to feel safe and comfortable. But more importantly, They rediscovered the love that had bound them so deeply all those years ago. Maria, in turn, brought a sense of humility and compassion to Andres's world of wealth and privilege. She reminded him of the simple joys in life, the value of kindness, the strength and resilience, and the power of love. Together, they decided to use Andres's resources to help others who had faced hardships like Maria's, establishing a foundation to support the homeless and those in need. Their story became one of hope and reunion, a testament to the enduring power of love and the belief that even in the darkest moments, fate has a way of bringing people back to where they belong. Over time, Andres and Maria's story became a source of inspiration not just for themselves but for the community around them. The foundation they created, aptly named New Horizons, quickly became a force for good in the city. Its mission was simple yet profound: to provide shelter, education, and opportunities for those living on the streets, just as Maria once had. Maria took an active role in running the foundation, meeting with individuals who came seeking help and sharing her own story of resilience. She connected deeply with those who felt lost or forgotten, her words carrying the weight of someone who truly understood their struggles. "I've been where you are," she often told them, her voice steady but warm. "And I know how hard it is to hold on to hope. But if I can find my way back, so can you. We're here to help you take that first step." One day, while visiting a shelter funded by the foundation, Maria met a young woman named Elena. Like Maria, Elena had been forced onto the streets after a series of tragic events, losing everything she had once held dear. She was hesitant to trust anyone, her eyes filled with both defiance and despair. Maria sat with Elena, listening to her story without judgment. "You remind me of myself," Maria said gently. "There was a time when I thought no one could help me either. But sometimes, letting someone in is the first step to finding your way out." Elena's walls began to crumble, and over the weeks that followed, Maria guided her toward resources and opportunities. Elena eventually found stable housing and a job through the foundation's programs, her transformation a testament to the work Maria and Andres had dedicated their lives to. As the foundation grew, Andres and Maria found their love deepening in ways they hadn't expected. The years of separation had left scars, but they chose to see those scars as reminders of the strength they had found in each other. One evening, as they sat together in the garden of their home, Andres took Maria's hand. "Do you remember the life we dreamed of before everything fell apart?" he asked, his voice soft. Maria smiled, her eyes reflecting the glow of the lanterns strung around them. "I do. A home filled with love, a family, and a purpose." Andres nodded. "I think we've built something even better than what we dreamed of. Not just for us, but for so many others." Maria leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. "We've come so far, Andres. And I'm so grateful we found our way back to each other." News of Maria and Andres's work began to spread, and soon, their story was featured in newspapers and on television. Journalists marveled at the extraordinary tale of a millionaire reuniting with his long-lost wife under such unlikely circumstances. But Maria and Andres always redirected the spotlight to the people they were helping. "This isn't just our story," Andres said during an interview. "It's the story of resilience, of hope, and of what can happen when we choose to lift each other up instead of looking away." Maria added, "There are so many people out there who feel invisible, just as I once did. We want them to know they're not forgotten. Every life has value, and every person deserves a second chance." The foundation's impact grew, with new programs addressing mental health, job training, and family reunification. Maria became known as the heart of New Horizons, her compassion and authenticity drawing people from all walks of life to support the cause. Andres, with his business acumen, ensured the foundation was financially sustainable, leveraging his network to secure partnerships and funding. But even as their work expanded, they never lost sight of what mattered most: their love for each other. They celebrated small moments, a quiet dinner, a walk through the park, the sound of laughter echoing through their home, as reminders of the life they had rebuilt together. Years later, on the anniversary of the day Maria returned Andres's wallet, the couple stood in front of a newly opened community center funded by their foundation. The center was named Maria's Haven, in honor of the woman whose strength and kindness had sparked it all. As they cut the ribbon, a crowd of supporters and beneficiaries cheered, their faces reflecting the hope and gratitude that had become the hallmark of Maria and Andres' journey. Among the crowd was Elena, now a program director at the foundation, who had brought several other women from similar backgrounds to see what was possible when hope was nurtured. That evening, as Maria and Andres returned home, they sat together on the same sofa where they had shared their first conversation after reuniting. Andres pulled out the same wallet Maria had returned to him years ago, now worn but still intact. "This," he said, holding it up, "wasn't just a wallet. It was a lifeline. It brought me back to you." Maria smiled, her eyes brimming with tears. "And it brought me back to myself." In the years that followed, Maria and Andres' work continued to thrive, their love story becoming a symbol of hope for people around the world. Their foundation expanded globally, and their efforts inspired countless others to take action in their own communities. Even in their later years, Maria and Andres remained deeply involved in their mission, their bond only growing stronger with time. They often reflected on the journey that had brought them to where they were, a journey marked by loss, rediscovery, and an unyielding belief in the power of love and resilience. And as they sat hand in hand, watching the sun set over their garden, they knew one thing for certain: their story wasn't just about finding each other again. It was about creating a world where everyone had the chance to be found. Maria and Andres' dedication to helping others became a beacon of hope for many. Their foundation, New Horizons, became synonymous with compassion and effective change. They implemented programs not only for the homeless but also for education, job training, and mental health services, addressing the root causes of homelessness and poverty. One day, while reviewing letters from people who had been helped by their foundation, Maria came across a message that touched her deeply. It was from a young man named Carlos, who wrote about how New Horizons had saved his life. He had been living on the streets after losing his family and job, but through the foundation he found shelter, counseling, and eventually a new career. Moved by his story, Maria invited Carlos to meet with her. When they sat down together, Carlos expressed his gratitude. "You and Andres have given me more than just a roof over my head," he said. "You've given me hope and a future. I want to give back and help others like me." Inspired by his passion, Maria offered him a position within the foundation to lead a new mentorship program. Carlos eagerly accepted, and his personal experience allowed him to connect with others in profound ways. As the foundation grew, Maria and Andres decided to host an annual gala to raise awareness and funds for their cause. The event became one of the most anticipated nights in the city, bringing together philanthropists, community leaders, and celebrities, all united in their support for New Horizons. At one such gala, Maria took to the stage to share her story with the attendees. Dressed elegantly but simply, she spoke from the heart. "Years ago, I sat on a street corner, invisible to the world," she began. "I had lost everything, but a single act of kindness changed my life forever. Returning a lost wallet led me back to my lost husband, Andres, and together we found a new purpose." She looked out over the audience, her eyes shining. "Our story is a testament to the incredible power of compassion and fate. But there are so many others out there still waiting for their chance at a new beginning. With your support, we can help them find it." The audience gave her a standing ovation, moved by her sincerity and the remarkable journey she and Andres had undertaken. Meanwhile, Andres continued to leverage his business expertise and connections to expand the foundation's impact. He worked tirelessly to ensure that New Horizons was not just a charity but a sustainable organization that empowered individuals to become self-sufficient. One afternoon, Andres received a call from a prominent businessman named Richard Thompson. Richard expressed interest in partnering with New Horizons to launch a nationwide initiative to combat homelessness. Impressed by the foundation's success, he wanted to replicate their model in other cities. Andres and Maria met with Richard to discuss the possibilities. During their meeting, Richard shared his own connection to their cause. "My brother struggled with homelessness for years," he confided. "He passed away before I could help him. I don't want others to experience that loss." Touched by his sincerity, Maria and Andres agreed to the partnership. Together, they launched the Hope Across Horizons campaign, aiming to establish centers like New Horizons in major cities across the country. The campaign garnered widespread media attention, bringing the issue of homelessness to the forefront of public discourse. With increased awareness, more resources poured in, enabling them to reach thousands more in need. Throughout these endeavors, Maria and Andres remained humble, always attributing their success to the people they served and the dedicated team behind the foundation. They continued to personally visit shelters, speak with individuals, and ensure that the organization's mission stayed true to its roots. One day, while visiting a newly opened center in another city, Maria met a teenage girl named Isabella. The girl reminded Maria of herself, resilient yet vulnerable. Isabella had run away from an abusive home and had been living on the streets for months. Maria sat with her, listening to her story without interruption. "You're safe here," Maria assured her gently. "We can help you find your way." With the support of the foundation, Isabella received counseling, enrolled in school, and began to heal from her past. She blossomed into a confident young woman with aspirations of becoming a social worker to help others who faced similar challenges. Stories like Isabella's reaffirmed Maria and Andres's commitment to their mission. They realized that beyond providing basic needs, their work was about restoring dignity and hope. As years turned into decades, the impact of New Horizons and Hope Across Horizons became evident. Homelessness rates began to decline in areas where their programs operated, and many former beneficiaries became advocates and leaders within the organization. In their personal lives, Maria and Andres cherished the time they spent together. They often retreated to a small cottage by the sea, a place where they could reflect and find peace away from the demands of their work. One evening, as they watched the waves gently lap against the shore, Andres took Maria's hand. "Do you ever think about how a simple act brought us back together?" he asked. Maria smiled softly. "Every day. It reminds me that kindness can change the course of a life." Andres nodded thoughtfully. "Imagine if everyone understood that." She rested her head on his shoulder. "That's what we're trying to show the world." As they sat there, enveloped in the serenity of the moment, they knew that their journey had come full circle. From the depths of despair to the heights of making a global impact, their lives were a testament to love, perseverance, and the profound effects of compassion. In their twilight years, Maria and Andres began to step back from their active roles, entrusting the foundation to a new generation of leaders who shared their vision. They remained involved as advisors, their wisdom guiding the organization's future. At a grand celebration marking the 30th anniversary of New Horizons, Maria and Andres were honored for their contributions. Former beneficiaries, now thriving individuals, spoke of how their lives had been transformed. Carlos, now the CEO of the foundation, took the stage. "Maria and Andres showed us that no matter how lost we may feel, there's always a path back," he said. Their unwavering belief in the goodness of people has lit a way for countless souls. As the audience applauded, Maria and Andres exchanged a look filled with gratitude and contentment. After the event, they returned to their home, filled with memories of a life well lived. Andres turned to Maria, his eyes reflecting the love that had only deepened over the years. "We've done so much together," he said softly. Maria reached out and touched his face gently. "And there's still so much goodness left in the world because of it?" He smiled. "I couldn't have done any of it without you." She laughed lightly. "Nor I without you." Their hands intertwined, they knew that their legacy would endure long after they were gone, carried on by the lives they had touched and the hope they had inspired. Maria and Andres spent their remaining days surrounded by family, friends, and a community that had become like an extended family. They continued to share their story, not for acclaim, but to remind others of the power of compassion and the extraordinary potential of every human connection. Their love story, born from a chance encounter on a city street, had become a beacon of hope, a reminder that sometimes the most profound journeys begin with a single act of kindness. As Maria and Andres stepped back from their active roles in New Horizons, the foundation flourished under the leadership of those they had mentored. Carlos, once a recipient of their programs, proved to be a dynamic and compassionate leader, expanding the organization into areas they had only dreamed of. He often credited Maria and Andres as the source of his inspiration, speaking about them with deep respect. Meanwhile, Maria and Andres spent more time focusing on their personal lives and reconnecting with simple joys. They traveled to places they had once dreamed of visiting, walking hand in hand through cobblestone streets in quaint European towns and marveling at the beauty of nature in serene mountain retreats. But no matter where they went, their hearts always remained tied to the foundation and the people they had helped. One day, Carlos came to visit them at their seaside cottage. He carried a thick portfolio filled with plans for a new initiative that he was eager to share with them. As they sat together in the sunlit living room, Carlos explained his vision, a mentorship program for young adults transitioning out of homelessness, designed to empower them to become leaders and changemakers in their communities. "We want to name it after you too," Carlos said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "The Maria and Andres Leadership Initiative. It's a way to honor everything you've taught us and ensure your legacy continues to inspire future generations." Maria looked at Andres, her heart swelling with emotion. "That's more than we could ever ask for," she said softly. "We're honored." Andres nodded, his voice steady. "Carlos, you've taken what we started and turned it into something we could only dream of. We couldn't be prouder of you." Carlos smiled, but his expression turned serious. "None of this would have been possible without your kindness. You didn't just give me a chance, you gave me hope." The Maria and Andres Leadership Initiative launched the following year, and its impact was immediate. Participants in the program, many of whom had experienced homelessness or poverty themselves, were given the tools and support they needed to become advocates and leaders in their communities. The initiative became a model for empowerment and systemic change, earning recognition on a global scale. One of the most touching moments came when Isabella, the teenage girl Maria had helped years ago, spoke at the program's first graduation ceremony. Now a confident and eloquent young woman, she shared her journey with the audience. "Maria and Andres didn't just save me, they believed in me," Isabella said, her voice filled with emotion. "Because of them, I learned to believe in myself. And now, I want to spend my life helping others find that same belief." Maria and Andres sat in the audience, tears streaming down their faces as they listened. They knew that their decision to act with kindness all those years ago had created a ripple effect far beyond anything they could have imagined. As the years passed, Maria and Andres became living legends, their story told in classrooms, boardrooms, and community centers around the world. Filmmakers approached them to create a documentary about their journey, and the resulting film, titled Kindness Reclaimed, became a worldwide sensation. It told the story of their reunion, the creation of new horizons, and the countless lives transformed along the way. During a screening of the film, Maria and Andres were approached by a young couple who had been deeply moved by their story. "You've shown us what's possible," the woman said, her voice trembling with emotion. "We've decided to start a community garden in our neighborhood to bring people together. It's a small step, but we hope it can grow into something bigger." Maria smiled, her heart filled with pride. "Small steps lead to great things," she said. "Don't ever underestimate the power of what you're doing." In their final years, Maria and Andres found joy in the little things, sharing quiet moments at home, watching the sunset from their porch, and hosting family gatherings filled with laughter and love. They remained deeply connected to New Horizons, attending events and offering guidance whenever needed. One evening, as they sat together by the fire, Andres turned to Maria and took her hand. "Do you ever think about how different our lives might have been if you hadn't returned my wallet that day?" he asked. Maria laughed softly. "I think about it all the time. But I don't dwell on the what-ifs. I'm just grateful for what we've built together." He nodded, his eyes reflecting the flickering flames. "It's more than I ever dreamed of, Maria. You've given me a life filled with meaning. And you've given me hope when I thought it was lost," she replied. "We've made a good team, haven't we?" "The best," Andres said, his voice full of love. When Maria and Andres passed away, just a few years apart, the world mourned the loss of two extraordinary individuals. Their legacy, however, continued to thrive. New Horizons and the Maria and Andres Leadership Initiative carried on their mission, touching millions of lives and inspiring countless others to lead with kindness and compassion. At their memorial service, held at the first New Horizons Center, Carlos delivered a heartfelt eulogy. Maria and Andres taught us that the smallest acts of kindness can create the greatest change, he said. Their love and dedication have left an indelible mark on the world, and it's up to us to carry their light forward. The audience, filled with people from all walks of life who had been touched by their work, stood in silent tribute. Outside the center, a garden was dedicated in their honor, filled with vibrant flowers and a plaque that read, "In memory of Maria and Andres, whose love for each other and for the world reminded us all that kindness has the power to change lives." Even decades later, their story remained a beacon of hope. Children learned about Maria and Andres in school, their names synonymous with the power of love and compassion. And in the quiet corners of cities, where acts of kindness often go unnoticed, their legacy lived on in the people who dared to believe that even the smallest gestures could create ripples of change. Maria and Andres had not only found each other, they had found their purpose. And in doing so, they showed the world what it truly means to make a difference. Decades after their passing, the legacy of Maria and Andres continued to grow in unexpected and extraordinary ways. Their foundation, New Horizons, became a global institution, known not just for its programs but for its philosophy, a belief that kindness and resilience can turn even the most tragic circumstances into opportunities for change. At the heart of their legacy was the annual Maria and Andres Global Kindness Summit, a gathering of world leaders, activists, educators, and everyday heroes who were working to make their communities better. The summit showcased projects inspired by their story, from small-town initiatives to worldwide campaigns. Among the attendees of the summit one year was a young boy named Mateo. Only 12 years old, Mateo had written an essay about Maria and Andres that had won a national contest. His essay was titled, "The Wallet That Changed the World." On stage, in front of thousands of people, Mateo stood nervously, clutching his note cards. But as he began to speak, his voice grew steady. "Maria and Andres weren't superheroes," he said. "They were ordinary people who made extraordinary choices. When Maria returned that wallet, she didn't just change her life, she changed the lives of millions of people. She taught us that even the smallest act of kindness can create ripples that spread across the world." The audience erupted into applause, and Mateo's speech went viral. His words reminded people everywhere that Maria and Andres' story wasn't just about them, it was about the power of everyday people to make a difference. To commemorate their enduring influence, the Museum of Hope was established in their honor. Built on the site of the first New Horizons Center, the museum chronicled their journey, from Maria's days on the streets to the global impact of their foundation. Visitors walked through exhibits that told their story in vivid detail. One room recreated the street corner where Maria had returned Andres' wallet, complete with a life-sized statue of her handing it back to him. Another room displayed the letters and testimonials from people whose lives had been transformed by New Horizons. At the center of the museum was a quiet, reflective space called the Garden of Gratitude, where visitors could leave messages of thanks or write down their own acts of kindness. Over the years, the walls of the garden became covered with notes, each one a testament to the lives Maria and Andres had inspired. The impact of their story extended far beyond the museum and the foundation. Books were written about them, films were made, and their philosophy was incorporated into educational curricula around the globe. Teachers used their story to teach empathy, resilience, and the importance of helping others. One particularly poignant moment came when a group of world leaders gathered to sign an international agreement aimed at eradicating homelessness. The agreement was called the Maria and Andres Accord, and it pledged billions of dollars toward programs that addressed housing, mental health, and job creation. The ceremony was held at the Museum of Hope, and leaders from over 50 countries attended, each inspired by the couple's vision. Years turned into centuries, but the story of Maria and Andres never faded. Their names became synonymous with hope, and their work became a cornerstone of how humanity approached compassion and change. In schools, children learned about the wallet that changed the world. In communities, People celebrated Maria and Andres' day with acts of kindness, from feeding the homeless to helping neighbors in need. And in homes across the globe, families told their story as a reminder that love and kindness can overcome even the greatest challenges. One evening, long after their passing, a young girl named Lucia stood before the statue of Maria and Andres at the Garden of Gratitude. She had heard their story from her grandmother, who had been helped by New Horizons decades earlier. Holding a single flower, she placed it at the base of the statue and whispered, "Thank you." As she stood there, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the statue. It was as if Maria and Andres were still watching over the world, their love and kindness continuing to guide it toward a brighter future. Because in the end, their story wasn't just about them. It was about the power of compassion, the strength of resilience, and the belief that even the smallest acts of kindness can change the world. And so, Maria and Andres' legacy lived on, not as a distant memory, but as a timeless reminder of what it means to truly make a difference. The years passed, and Maria and Andres' influence seeped into the fabric of society. Their philosophy wasn't just a fleeting trend, it became a way of life for many. People who once felt hopeless and invisible now believed that their circumstances could change, that their lives could have meaning, and that they too could contribute to the world. At an international conference focused on eradicating homelessness, Carlos stood at the podium representing New Horizons. He had grown into a confident and eloquent speaker, channeling the lessons Maria and Andres had imparted into every word he spoke. "We are not here to treat homelessness as a statistic," he said, his voice resonating with conviction. "We are here to remember that every person has a story, just as Maria and Andres had theirs. They didn't start with much, only love, resilience, and the courage to do what was right. But they built something extraordinary, and their example shows us that the smallest acts of kindness can spark revolutions of change." The audience erupted in applause, and among them sat young leaders who had come from far and wide to learn from New Horizons' success. After the conference, Carlos was approached by a woman from a small island nation. She spoke passionately about her desire to start a program modeled after New Horizons, explaining how poverty and displacement had ravaged her community. Carlos listened intently, nodding. "Let's work together," he said, extending his hand. "We'll make it happen." The collaboration led to the establishment of the first international New Horizons Center, a milestone that underscored the foundation's ability to inspire global change. Over time, similar centers sprang up in dozens of countries, each tailored to address the unique needs of its community while holding true to the principles Maria and Andres had instilled. Their story began to evolve into something larger than anyone could have imagined. People around the world started using the term Maria and Andres moments to describe instances when they chose kindness or took a leap of faith to help someone else. Social media campaigns encouraged individuals to share their own stories of small but meaningful acts of compassion, creating an endless ripple of positivity. Even those who had once been skeptical of such ideals began to take notice. A prominent business leader, known for his cutthroat approach, gave a speech at a major conference where he admitted that Maria and Andres' story had changed his perspective. "I used to think that success was measured by the bottom line," he said. "But Maria and Andres showed me that the real measure of success is the impact you have on others. Because of them, I've decided to redirect my company's profits toward initiatives that uplift communities." Their legacy also reached unexpected places. In a maximum security prison, a group of inmates read about Maria and Andres as part of a rehabilitation program. Inspired by their story, the inmates started their own initiative within the prison, creating programs to mentor younger offenders and prepare them for life after release. "It's about redemption," one inmate said in a television interview. "Maria and Andres' story showed us that it's never too late to do something good. If they could rise above their challenges, so can we." One evening, Carlos sat at his desk, reflecting on the incredible journey New Horizons had taken since its inception. He opened a letter from a teenager who had participated in the Maria and Andres Leadership Initiative. The young boy wrote about how he had been on the verge of dropping out of school when the program intervened. Now, he was preparing to attend college on a full scholarship, with dreams of becoming a social worker. Carlos felt a lump in his throat as he read the final lines of the letter. Maria and Andres may not be here anymore, but their story lives in me. I'll carry it forward just like they taught us to. As Carlos folded the letter, he glanced at a framed photo on his desk. A picture of Maria and Andres standing in front of the first New Horizons Center, their smiles radiating warmth and hope. He whispered, "Thank you for everything." The foundation continued to grow, its mission now guided by the people who had been transformed by its programs. Maria and Andres' names became symbols of what humanity could achieve when it embraced compassion and resilience. And though the couple was no longer there to witness it, their presence was felt in every corner of the world where lives were being changed. In the quiet corners of homes, families shared their story as a bedtime tale. Teachers used their example to spark discussions on ethics and kindness. Activists invoked their names when rallying for social justice, and artists painted murals depicting their journey as a testament to the enduring power of love and hope. The world didn't just remember Maria and Andres. It carried their story forward, living it every day through actions big and small. And in every life they touched, their legacy continued to grow, an infinite ripple that would never fade. Maria and Andres' legacy began to intertwine with the fabric of daily life in ways both profound and subtle. Their story wasn't just shared at galas or summits, it became a part of how communities define themselves. New Horizons was no longer just a foundation, it was a movement, inspiring everything from grassroots initiatives to policy reforms. In a small village far from the bustling cities where their journey began, a teacher named Anna introduced Maria and Andres' story to her classroom. The children, most of whom came from families struggling to make ends meet, listened with rapt attention as Anna described how a simple act of returning a wallet had sparked a global wave of kindness and change. One student, a boy named Samuel, raised his hand. "Do you think we can do something like that here?" he asked hesitantly. Anna smiled. "Absolutely. Change starts small, Samuel. All it takes is one act of kindness." Inspired, Samuel and his classmates decided to create a project to help the elderly in their village. They began delivering meals, cleaning yards, and spending time with those who were lonely. Word of their efforts spread, and soon adults in the community joined in, creating a network of support that revitalized the village. Years later, when Samuel had grown into a young man, he stood before a crowded auditorium at a New Horizons summit. "I used to think that people like Maria and Andres were special, that their story was something we could admire but never replicate," he said. "But I've learned that what makes them special is something we all have, the ability to care, to act, and to make a difference. Their story is ours too." In cities around the world, similar stories unfolded. A single mother in Chicago started a tutoring program for children in her neighborhood, inspired by Maria's resilience. A retired engineer in Mumbai launched a vocational training center for unemployed youth, citing Andres' determination to rebuild his life from nothing. Even governments began to adopt policies that reflected the principles Maria and Andres had championed, such as prioritizing rehabilitation over punishment and focusing on systemic solutions to poverty and homelessness. At the heart of it all was the simple yet profound idea that Maria and Andres had lived by, that no one is truly lost, and every person deserves a chance to rise above their circumstances. One evening, decades after Maria and Andres' passing, a family gathered in the Museum of Hope. The parents had grown up hearing about Maria and Andres from their own families, and now they were sharing the story with their children. The youngest, a girl named Clara, stared in awe at the statue of Maria handing Andres the wallet. "Did they really change the world just by being kind?" Claire asked, her voice filled with wonder. "They did," her father replied. "But they didn't do it alone. They inspired others to be kind too. And that's how the world changes, one person at a time." Clara reached out and touched the base of the statue, her small hand brushing against the engraved words that had become the motto of New Horizons. "Kindness has no limits, and hope knows no boundaries." As the family walked away, Clara turned to her parents. "I want to do something kind tomorrow," she said firmly. Her mother smiled. "Then let's think of something together." In the years that followed, the phrase Maria and Andres moments became a part of everyday language, symbolizing acts of kindness that had the potential to ripple outward. People shared their Maria and Andres moments on social media, in schools, and at community events, creating a global tapestry of compassion. In a small coastal town, a fisherman used his earnings to fund a school for children who couldn't afford an education. In a bustling metropolis, a CEO restructured his company to prioritize ethical practices and community outreach. And in a rural farming village, a group of neighbors pooled their resources to build a well that provided clean water for everyone. Each of these acts, though seemingly small, carried the essence of Maria and Andres' story, a reminder that every choice to help, to give, and to care could transform the world. As the decades turned into centuries, the legacy of Maria and Andres endured. Their names were etched into history not as distant figures, but as symbols of what humanity could achieve when it embraced compassion and resilience. Monuments to their stories stood in cities across the globe, and their teachings were woven into the education of children everywhere. In a future where technology and progress had reshaped the world, one constant remained: the belief that kindness was the most powerful force for change. Maria and Andres' story continued to be told, not as a relic of the past, but as a guide for the future. And though they were no longer there to witness it, their presence was felt in every act of kindness, every life transformed, and every heart that chose hope over despair. Because Maria and Andres had shown the world that even the smallest gestures could create infinite ripples. And those ripples would never fade.